Mr. Chairman, would you indulge me for a moment?
We indulge you every moment.
I appreciate that act of generosity. It's just something you said that I think is actually dangerous and should be addressed, and you're welcome. But when Judge Anderol was killed in New Jersey, the Republican colleagues in the Senate, their outpouring of support, their outpouring of concern, they're willing to work together on a bipartisan bill was extraordinary. It shows the truth of this institution that, despite some of the fiery rhetoric that you were sowing, we're really a bipartisan, working bipartisanship. Cornyn and Coons, after the incidents you're talking about, got together and actually passed a bill to better protect our Supreme Court justices, many of whom are friends of ours. You know, Gorsuch and I disagree on a lot of stuff. I knew his wife before he did. We studied together at Oxford. This implication that there was silence when there were threats on their people's houses is absolutely absurd. I remember the rhetoric and the comments, the concern from Coons. I actually distinctly remember you, Chairman, on more than once condemning those attacks on Republican-appointed jurists. To say things like that feeds just the partisanship in this institution and feeds the fiery rhetoric. And it's just plain not true. It's just plain not true. And I think you know that, but we can pull from the record from my colleagues in real time, literally days afterwards, condemning it. There's a lot of substantive things to say here, but to think that the lack of humanity when people's homes are being threatened was not in existence, I think that's unfair and really concerns me that you would say that in the way that you did.
Well, I thank my colleague from New Jersey. I will note, as John Adams observed, that facts are stubborn things. And it is existing federal law, 18 U.S.C. section 1507, that makes it a crime to protest at a judge's home. And the law provides whoever with the intent of interfering with, obstructing, or impeding the administration of justice, or with the intent or of influencing any judge, juror, witness, or court officer in the discharge of his duty, pickets or parades in or near a building housing a court of the United States, in or near a building or residence occupied or used by such judge, juror, witness, or court officer, or with such intent uses any sound truck or similar device or resorts to any other demonstration in or near any such building or residence, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both. That is federal criminal law. Night after night after night, angry mobs were outside the Supreme Court justices' homes, and in the entire course of it, the Biden Justice Department prosecuted nobody. We had the Attorney General sitting at that table, and multiple Republican senators asked him, why are you not enforcing the law? What they are doing is a crime. And my friend from New Jersey said, it is a lie to say we, the Democrats, condone this. I would challenge, my friend, find a single Democrat senator on this committee holding the Attorney General to account for not enforcing this law. I was here at those hearings, and I do not recall a single Democrat senator saying to the Attorney General, you should arrest these people who are violating the law, you should protect the judges. I agree that there was general language against violence, but not a single Democrat senator that I ever saw in this committee was willing to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland to account for flagrantly disregarding the federal criminal law because the Biden administration agreed with the protesters and I think wanted those justices harassed at their home.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Do well to check up on our last video to stay updated. Well, I wasn't planning on making a video today, but after watching that Senate exchange, yeah, that one, I couldn't stay quiet. You've probably seen the clips by now. This is one of the most infuriating, disingenuous, and hypocritical exchanges I've seen in a Senate committee hearing in a long time. And that's saying a lot. Now, let me paint the picture for you. A Republican senator calls out the Biden administration and the Democrats on the committee for staying silent when radical leftist mobs surrounded the homes of Supreme Court justices. And what happens? Senator Cory Booker throws a tantrum, calls it a patent lie, says it's dangerous, raises his voice like that somehow makes him right. Let's break it down. The Republican senator made a simple, fact-based statement. Federal law, 18 U.S.C. Section 1507, makes it illegal to protest at a judge's residence with the intent of influencing their decisions. That's not some right-wing opinion. That is federal law. And guess what? No one was arrested. Not a single person. Night after night, mobs of radical activists camped outside justices' homes, banging drums, chanting, screaming. And what did Biden's Department of Justice do? Nothing. Not a thing. Why? Because they liked the intimidation. They agreed with the protesters. They were angry about the Dobbs decision. So they looked the other way. That's not just a double standard, it's dangerous.
I really appreciate that you've now shifted the accusation you made earlier. Your accusation was that we were silent in the face of protests at Supreme Court justices' homes. Again, we joined together in a bipartisan way, not only to condemn that, but to pass legislation to extend round-the-clock security protection, literally days. It was introduced May 5th, passed the Senate in a bipartisan fashion on May 9th. So if you're saying that we didn't criticize
Did the
Merrick
Biden
Garland,
DOJ arrest a single person under this law?
You are now changing the
No, that is what I said.
accusation
That is what I said.
Again, I'll pull the record.
Did the Biden DOJ arrest even one?
Again,
The answer is no.
my point to you is the accusation that the Democrats on this committee do not care about the safety
All right, so let me
of
ask you
federal
this.
judges.
Should
I
the
did not
Biden
interrupt you,
DOJ
sir. I would appreciate if you let me finish. I am sick and tired of hearing the kind of heated partisan rhetoric, which is one of the reasons why we have such divisions in this country. The attacks we see from the President of the United States of America trolling and dragging judges through is what we should be talking about that puts people in danger. I'm simply taking issue with the claim that you made at the top that people on the Democratic side of the aisle do not care about the safety and the security of judges and said nothing. You said we were silent after people's houses were protested. That is a patent lie, sir. We were not silent. We took action. We joined in a bipartisan way to protect those judges, as was done in a bipartisan way to protect a New Jersey judge after their horrific attack at their home. So I see you now trying to shift the debate to whether we talk to an attorney general. I'm simply taking issue with this accusation that somehow we Democrats are so bad because we don't call out threats to our judicial colleagues. And that is wrong. You could change the argument now that you want, but what you said was patently not true and was in fact a patent lie.
So I do enjoy the fact that my colleague from New Jersey raises his voice and says it's a patent lie and says he's doing so in defense of lowering the rhetoric. There is some irony to doing those two together. I'll point out that in the entire course of those remarks, Senator Booker did not dispute the central point I made, which is the Biden Justice Department arrested 0 people, prosecuted 0 people, for violating the criminal law, and every Democrat senator on this committee was silent about it. And this was an ongoing pattern for months. And I would note also that the senator from New Jersey clutched his pearls about language threatening judges, and yet I do not recall a single Democrat senator of this committee saying a word when Chuck Schumer went to the steps of the Supreme Court and threatened the safety of the Supreme Court justices by name, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, and he said, "You have unleashed the whirlwind and you will pay the price." And not a single Democrat senator had a word to say about this. And so their outrage is selective. And I will give my colleague from New Jersey a chance to just answer a simple yes-no question. Should the Biden Justice Department have enforced the criminal law against protesting at a justice's home? Yes or no?
So the rank hypocrisy of Chuck Schumer apologizing the next day and you holding that standard for him and not for your president, who you actually rightfully described when you were running against him in a primary. I would love to run those tapes of how you perfectly talked about the danger of our president and his rhetoric. But now you are failing, in fact, blind to the very things you're accusing Chuck Schumer of. I don't think Donald Trump would know an apology if it hit him in the head. Never has said apologizing. So again, you are very, very, sir, very, very deep into the waters of hypocrisy in your criticisms of Chuck Schumer.
So let the record reflect that Spartacus did not answer the question and did not tell us whether the criminal law should be enforced, because he knows the answer is yes, and he knows that the Biden Department of Justice was being wildly political and partisan in refusing to enforce the law because they disagreed with the Supreme Court justice's rulings.
Now here comes Booker. Classic performance. He starts with a compliment, then immediately shifts into emotional outbursts. Says it's dangerous to suggest Democrats were silent. Says it feeds partisanship. Well, guess what, Senator? What feeds partisanship is one party refusing to enforce laws simply because it doesn't serve their political agenda. Booker tries to cover himself by pointing out bipartisan legislation that increased judicial protection. Good. But that's not the issue. No one is saying Democrats didn't pass security funding. What we're saying, what the Republican senator clearly stated, is that Democrats refuse to hold their own Justice Department accountable for letting mobs break federal law without consequence. Booker couldn't name a single Democrat senator who said, Merrick Garland, do your job, enforce the law. Not one. Let's say this had been reversed. Imagine if conservative protesters surrounded the homes of liberal judges. You think the DOJ would sit back and relax? Of course not. We'd have SWAT teams, CNN headlines, and January 6-style commissions launched within 48 hours. But because these justices were appointed by Trump, because the left hated their rulings, the Biden DOJ turned a blind eye. That's political law enforcement. That's banana republic behavior. Now here's where the hypocrisy goes into overdrive. The Republican senator brings up Chuck Schumer, and this is something every American should remember. Schumer went to the steps of the Supreme Court and literally said to Justices Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, "You have unleashed the whirlwind. You will pay the price." That's not protest. That's a threat. You'd think Booker, so concerned about heated rhetoric, would have something to say about that, right? Wrong. Silence. Why? Because it came from a Democrat. Because it fit the narrative. Because the left only condemns threats when they come from the right. They want to protect their political allies, not the rule of law. This part was incredible. The Republican senator asks Booker one simple question. Should the DOJ have enforced the criminal law against protesting at justices' homes? Yes or no? Booker dodged, changed the subject, attacked Trump, brought up things that had nothing to do with the question. That's not leadership. That's cowardice. He knows the answer is yes. But he can't say it because it would mean calling out his own party. And folks, that tells you everything you need to know. This isn't just about a Senate spat. This is about the erosion of justice in our country. One side plays by the rules. The other burns the rulebook when it's inconvenient. And when they're called out on it, they cry foul, raise their voices, and pretend they're being wronged. I don't care how emotional your speech is. I care whether you stand for the Constitution, equal justice, and accountability. This is why we need real conservatives in office, leaders who won't cave under pressure, who will stand up for truth, even when the media turns against them. Booker and his colleagues want you to believe they care about judges' safety. But when it mattered, when federal law was broken, they looked the other way. Patriots, don't be fooled. If you're sick of the double standards, if you believe the law should apply to everyone, not just political enemies, then stand with us. Like this video, share it, comment below what you think. Should the DOJ have enforced the law against protesters at justices' homes? And most importantly, subscribe, because we're not done. We're just getting started. God bless you. God bless our Constitution. And God bless the United States of America.